Hello, my name is Aaron Ashton. I'm a consultant with Odgers Berndtson in Dubai. Thank you for joining part one of this two-part conversation looking at the development of e-learning. E-learning is an area that's of huge interest to me, so I'm delighted to be talking to Mayank Dhingra today. Mayank is a senior business leader from Hewlett-Packard's education business. At HP, Mayank has developed the e-learning proposition for the K-12 education and the higher education sectors across the Middle East and Africa, and this work has brought him into contact with institutions, but also governments. Previously, Mayank was the CCO at GEMS Education, and prior to that was head of global technology partnerships for Emirates Group. Mayank, hello.
Thank you, Aaron. Pleasure to be here with you today.
Obviously, your role gives you unique insight into the tech-driven changes that are going to shape the education sector. And fascinated to know, so from your perspective and from the conversations that you're having at the moment, what are the trends? What are the things that are coming out that might shape the future of e-learning over the next few years?
It's a good question. I mean, the way I see it, I think there are about 4 or 5 trends which are sort of dictating the way education and pedagogy is reshaping itself. And I think the first one, of course, is blended learning. So, blended learning is nothing but bringing technology into the classroom. But when you bring technology into the classroom, there are various facets one needs to consider, because it's not just about bringing technology in for the sake of it, but how is it addressing the 3 main constituents of the class? And the 3 main constituents of the class are the student, the teacher, and the IT organization which sits at the back of the class. Very often we forget about them. So the main thing is to make sure that when you are bringing technology in, it needs to start addressing the student and speaking to them in a manner and fashion that they're used to today in the digital world. So how do you make their current student journey much better through technology? And very often the teachers themselves might not be ready for the new digital world. So, how do you give them control back of the classroom through technology? How do you give them class monitoring tools on their screens? How do you make sure that they're able to have a conversation in the digital world? How are they able to assess in the digital world and so on? So, you need to take care of the student, you need to take care of the teacher in the class. And then you need to also make sure that if you have brought in so much technology, is the IT arm of the school ready for it or the university ready for it? And so you need to start giving them dashboarding and predictive maintenance tools so that they can actually realize what's happening in their assets and are able to better manage and maintain it. So only when you have taken care of all these 3 constituents is when you can truly create a blended classroom. So that really is, I think, the focus of what's happening today in education. But immediately followed by content, right? So you've got the tools there, but then what do you do in terms of deploying these tools? You need to have the national curriculum digitized. So only when the curriculum, which is the center stage of any class, is digitized, and not just digitized but made interactive, is when you have taken step 2, right? So you've got the tools in place for all the 3 constituents. You've then got the curriculum, which is the center stage of the class today, digitized and made interactable. And then you sort of need to look at how do you move into the era of outcomes, because that's where we are right now. We've moved from the era of access to the era of learning to the era of outcomes. And the way to do that is to make the student the center of the class, because knowledge has been commoditized. So it's no longer about the teacher or the instructor being the sole repository of information, but they have to now morph their roles into becoming facilitators. So the classroom is becoming flipped. And in that flipped classroom, you need to have project-based learning, you need to have peer-to-peer tutoring and so on. So you need to create that environment for this tools and this content to start becoming mainstream in the class. And that really happens when the classroom becomes flipped. And beyond that, in the sort of slightly far away horizon, you have things coming which are more around, immersive technologies. So immersive technologies like virtual reality are going to make the ability for far richer engagement. Because what is learning? Learning is really a process of understanding and application and memory, right? So you understand, you memorize, you apply, and this interweaves throughout. So the only way for it to become deeper is when you have richer engagement, because you need solid anchors for both memory and for understanding. And these solid anchors are created when all your senses are activated, and that's what virtual reality does. It also ensures equitable distribution of education, because today, if a student sitting in Dubai or New York or Singapore can travel all the way to Machu Picchu to actually experience that, a child in a village in India or Ethiopia might not be able to do that. But through virtual reality, you give them the same advantage that the children in sort of more mature economies get. So that's about getting the immersive technologies in, both for equitable distribution and for more deeper engagement. And finally is personalization. Anytime you have technology coming in, you start now looking at AI and ML coming at the back of it, and then how do you create a more personalized journey? How do you understand that particular student's learning style, ability to cope with the curriculum, and how do you help them along that process? So I think these are the sort of 4 or 5 mega trends that are dictating education today. And what's happening is that COVID has acted as a catalyst, and it has got all the elements together and combusted them. So you now have the whole structure imploding inward on itself, and you're in this period of creative destruction. And from this creative destruction is what innovation is going to come about and reshape and remake education. And I think it's going to be an exciting era outside.
Really exciting times, and really interesting to hear you talk about it. And as you describe it, clearly it's a huge challenge, and you can see the way for a public-private partnership. And I know you've been actively building your ecosystem around hardware, software, services to deliver this. And it's a time of huge change and massive potential for e-learning to deliver. When you think about sort of the big data that could be captured and the algorithms that need to sort of play out behind that to really personalize the learning journey for the individual. Where do you think we'll be in 5 years' time?
Yeah, I think, I can't remember the name of the management thinker who said it, but the prediction was, and I think it was in 2017, that the biggest company in the world by 2025 is going to be an education company. And I think that seems to be right, because you had Scott Galloway go on record a few days back and say that big tech is going to combine with elite universities and create these mega cyborg universities, right? So I think the writing is on the wall in some sense that healthcare and EdTech are going to be dominant growth industries, and they are going to not be in the form or shape that we know them as of today, but they're going to sort of recalibrate, recurate themselves based on whatever is happening, right? And recently, we put out a program for ministries to support them on the remote education initiatives and to sort of handle the impact of COVID. And we did this with the Education Alliance partners because you have to create an integrated enterprise. And I remember our partners in Mirai and Classera, one of them said that, what we are doing in 1 month is now 1 year's work of time. And that is so true, because, and probably Lenin said it even better, because he said that there are decades where nothing happens, but then there are weeks in which decades happen. And it was said by Lenin, but Scott again repopularized it. And I think that's the sort of accelerated trajectory we are on. So you're going to see a lot of changes. One is, I think, the fact that the proxy credentialing, right, the 4-year degree program, which basically says that now you have this student which is ready for the real world, is going to change. You're going to look at micro credentials. You're going to start looking at the fact of what are the impactful internships you can do, and what is the application of knowledge, right? And show me the difference you've made in the world. So that's what employers are going to start looking for, and they're going to move away from this proxy credentials in a big way. And the second thing is that education is going to become more equitable and distributed because of technology coming in, because of 5G coming in, because big tech and mega universities will combine and really open up the world. So I think all of this is going to make education change in ways that we have never thought of. The boundaries are going to get blurred between campuses. Blended learning is going to be the new normal, and a student could be taking a class in the morning in MIT and then taking the second class in a university in Singapore. So you could see campuses merging as well and disappearing. So all of this is, I think, what the future is going to look like. Is it concrete yet? No, it's a little hazy. But I think the next couple of years, we're going to see actual shape and form take place.
It's really interesting to hear you talk, particularly when you sort of mentioned the democratization of learning through MOOCs and those massive open online courses. And it has occurred to me as you're talking that this is in itself a sort of an example of micro learning. So someone keen to understand this topic and sort of delve in for 10 minutes or so to hear an expert like you talk on this trend. So thank you. That's really interesting.
Thank you, Aaron.